Right.
Hello, fermented folks. Welcome to another episode of Fermented Fiction. Tonight, we continue our holiday festivities by debating the debatably classic Polar Express. It just depends on what you think, and tonight it depends on how you roll, because that's how this show works. Um, we are here with an awesome guest today, Victor Rodriguez, and we're going to go around the table, introduce ourselves, and then we'll have Victor introduce himself. So, Travis, you got a quick update for us?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it quick. I'm going to nerd out a bit. I tried a new method in my classroom just this week, and I'm just kind of excited about it. So I have a class that drags their feet a lot, my freshmen. They're pretty hard to get enthused about history, especially, but we're talking about Alexander the Great, and before you talk about Alexander the Great, you have to talk about Philip of Macedon. And Philip of Macedon's life is like a reality TV show. So I have this class of 3 girls, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this new thing. I was like, do you watch reality TV show? They're all like, yeah, we love dance. We love Dance Moms. And I was like, okay.
Excellent.
It was like, Dance Moms
Perfect.
have nothing on Philip of Macedon. It's like, what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you like 2 lead up kind of stories. And then for the third story, I'm going to give you 3 options of like, what would the next episode in this reality show be? So Philip's life really provides a bunch of home run opportunities for that kind of teaching, because like the one that always blows my mind, and this is why I'm trying to keep it short, is Philip's, when his like the king before him sold him into slavery and just happened to sell him to like the best Theban general in all of Greece. And so he just got to become the like servant of this mastermind of military strategy. And that guy couldn't have guessed that. He was just trying to not get assassinated and ended up like giving this man the tools to become the next Macedonian empire. So I don't know. I had them do this like guessing game, like Dance Moms style, and they bought in. It was great. And I'm going to do that with my history lessons from now on. So that's my update. It was very fun.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
It's all about making it relevant, making it topical, making it interesting, because that's like the number one pushback I always got from history was, why do we have to learn about the past?
Mm-hmm.
How does it affect me today?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, and then it's just that go-to line of like, history repeats itself, learn from the past, you'll understand the future. But whatever, that's just what we all say to those students, and they continue to ask us that question.
Yeah, so I tried the redirection of Dance Moms got nothing on Alexander the Great's court.
Exactly.
I mean,
history is very teachable to the youths as long as you play a very long game of where's the beef.
yeah.
Where's the beef? Yep, 100%. A lot of drama.
Alexander the Great was essentially Macedonia's the situation. And
Well,
he was the
he
situation.
Yeah, he
all
was
beef all day.
He was just Jersey Shore. He was like
Yeah.
a bunch of lads like, let's just go conquer Persia.
What's Persia doing over there?
Let's
All
try it.
unconquered.
Yeah, bros, let's do it.
Anyway, this is a show about genre fiction, everybody, not history. But you know, thanks for being here. Jeremy, what do you got?
Yeah. All right. Well, it's I guess 'tis the season this Christmas or whatever your holiday is. I'm getting gifts for people, and apparently this is the year of custom keyboards because both my mom and my mother-in-law have asked for them ever since they saw me playing around with mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was surprising for let's say all the reasons that they would want that. But yeah, that's two presents done. So
they make the fun click clack noises.
Yes, they do make very fun click clack noises, or they don't. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I want the one that does. That's the one.
I know it's much more satisfying to have a little bit of that tactile sensation, a little bit of a sensory payoff for the ears as well, just like in a good story, engaging all 5 senses, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody else miss when you could actually slam a phone
I really do.
You know?
Yes.
Right now, if I slam my phone, I have to get a new one.
Even like I was just talking about this. Even I still grew up in the age of cell phones, but it was still the flip phone.
Oh,
So
yeah,
you
the
could
flip
still
phone,
like
ah,
shut it. You could
you
still
could
get
still
that.
slam a flip phone.
Like
Oh, it was
that's
so good.
so much better than the pushing the like screen doesn't
Yeah,
work.
if I'm just like, eh, I
Yeah.
feel like I've already lost whatever that argument was about.
You have. And then you just end up looking stupid. Like you can slam it on something after you hang it up, but like nobody even, it doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, if I throw it across the room, I look dumber.
You do. You do. And you looking dumber is not something anybody needs, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
I
so
look plenty dumb already.
I know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mm.
But so my my updates. I finished contemporary dark fiction class finally, which is awesome. Thank you, Richard Thomas. That class was awesome. Thank you for coming on our show too. That was really cool of you to pop in
dope.
here and debate long legs with us. Learned a ton in that class. And if you happen to be a creative writer with enough money to pay for a Richard Thomas class, they are a little bit expensive, but it's worth every penny. He's a very established editor. He's very generous with his time and his feedback. And the people that get into that class, you know, I've come to reevaluate how I feel about expensive classes. If you do pay a lot of money for a class, you do tend to get with other people in that cohort that are pretty dedicated and taking things seriously, which in creative writing specifically is pretty valuable for me at this point. So I would say if you have the money for it, it's definitely going to be worth it. And the other people that pay into it are going to be bought in, literally. And you come out of that class with, at minimum, like 4 full short stories that are full short story length, because that's a requirement. But then he gives you a weekly assignment too, and almost all of those assignments for me have turned into short stories as well. So I have like 16 short stories now, all from that class, all in the course of 3 months. So I'm pretty stoked about it. I haven't submitted short stories for a while. I've been focused on my indie publishing and my producing stuff. And now I have all these stories that are just chilling that I'm pretty happy with and stoked for. So I'm excited to get some stuff back out into the submission world. Try to get into some more magazines and get my name out there a little more. And having Richard Thomas in your corner definitely doesn't hurt either. So I guess that's my update. Got a bunch of new stories, going to be polishing and submitting things throughout the year. And I haven't done that for a while, so I'm stoked on it. And that's enough from the people you hear blabber every week on this show. Let's talk to the most interesting person on the screen, Victor, our guest. How are you, man? Who are you, man? How's it going? And what have you been up to? What are you up to right now? And thanks for being here.
Oh, hey, you guys. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I really appreciate it. And it's cool to be recording with you. And yeah, I'm based in Olympia these days, Washington State, and I'm a talent manager. I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. As you might imagine, my clients are composers, writers, production company. So I like staying close to movies where I had my first career, and games where I had my second career, video games. So yeah, it's been fun. I have a client right now with a vampire romance movie on Tubi called You Shouldn't Have Let Me In. And I got a production company called, they have a movie called Silent Thunder that's rentable on Amazon. And as for me, as you know, Clay, I write short fiction on the side. And yeah, I have 3 horror stories that have kind of been making the rounds, trying to find a home for them. And in the meantime, I published this, I guess, bit of crime edutainment fiction, working for a secondary educational group. I wrote a comic book script, and they published it recently. But if you want to check it out, it's free to read. It's just go to newheightseducation.com and look at their Easy Tunes section, and you can check it out. It's about the kid who's tempted to steal a bike.
Nice.
All right.
So yeah, but yeah, my heart belongs to genre fiction, and I think this work that we're going to talk about tonight fits right into that.
Yep.
Oh,
It's
it
the
sure
season.
does.
Certainly.
Tis the
It certainly
season.
Isn't it?
Tis and tis. Tis. Okay, well, thank you for being here, Victor. It's awesome to have you on the show. You definitely offer a unique perspective, too. We have had quite a few authors and stuff on, but not ever a talent manager. So that's cool. It'll be fun to explore that perspective as we get to the open table. We always kind of try to dig into what you can bring from your unique angle in the industry. So I'm excited for that. And on that note, let's get rocking in that direction. We're going to get to our fun favorite segment for all of us. I think it's that forced enrollment segment. It's that juicy 10-minute debate determined by the dice gods. We are going to roll 2 d20s. The high roll will defend, the low roll will attack. Polar Express, regardless of what they actually think. Bum, bum, bum.
What a film.
What a film. Let's let the dice gods decide your opinions. Victor and Jeremy are going to be our debaters tonight. Are both of you prepared to roll?
Oh, I'm so ready. I've even retired the last one that I've used that makes me lose a lot.
That's
Yes, sir.
That's very mature of you. Travis refuses to retire Bluey no matter how many nat ones it pulls.
I retired nothing.
He's not retired. He's on a vacation to recuperate.
Sure. Okay.
Bluey rolls like I wrestled. Beat your head against the wall until it works. That's all you do.
That's the spirit.
And the next thing you know, 6 years have gone by.
Mm.
All right. You guys go ahead and roll. Then tell us what you rolled, and I have my timer ready for when you're done.
Oh boy.
13. That's lucky.
That's
Mm.
a 15. Apparently the
Oh.
13. That's wow. So
The new
Okay.
dice.
is it good luck or is it bad luck? You all decide.
We will see.
Yeah, maybe you chose the wrong day. Maybe you chose the exact right day. Either way, you're going to have to take the side of defense. Are both of you ready?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
All right, I want a good, clean debate. You got 10 minutes. There's really no structure to this aside from both of you need to allow the other to make an opening statement. But from there, you can just kind of go back and forth, pretty free form. All right, so we are starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
So the Polar Express, what a, I will say joy to revisit this on the 20th anniversary of its release. What a, I love Tom Hanks. I love seeing him sort of, let's say, play with his lesser explored instincts of scary train hobo, Santa Claus, guy that is maybe going to yell at the children, but then he's cool at the end. I feel like that's more in his wheelhouse than but it's nice. It's Christmas start to finish. No one can reasonably deny that. And it's, it's just a whimsical, charming, fun ride. Oh, it's on a train. Shit. All right. Yeah. But that's where I'm going to start it. And I'm going to pass it over to my esteemed opponent for this.
And just so I understand, I am defending the movie, right?
You are attacking.
Oh, I'm
rolled
attacking the
higher.
movie. Okay.
I know some of the nice things I said did sound like savage insults. I like the scary train hobo and that he uses the discarded marionettes to just scare a child and then disappear into snow a few times.
Yes.
It's, if I was a scary train hobo, I feel like I would do the exact same thing.
Yes. Well, okay. Being in the position to attack this movie from 2004, directed by the once great Robert Zemeckis, who was a real directorial hero of mine until he directed a movie called Forrest Gump, which made him super popular and super lame. I don't think I've liked anything that he's done since or and including Forrest Gump. But when he was doing genre movies like Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, he was awesome. So I don't know what happened there, but Polar Express definitely after Forrest Gump. Now,
I feel like we can confirm that it did. That happened after.
yeah, no matter your position on this movie, I mean, you've got to admit it is far from perfect. Now, I had never seen it before I was preparing for this show, and I had the displeasure of burning about 90 minutes of my time taking in the supposed Christmas spirit of this this movie, and then afterwards I read the picture book that it's based on, that it's adapted from, I should say, by Chris Van Allsburg, which I thought was awesome. So I get why they wanted to make a movie of this. It's, I mean, it's a magical book. You know, I'm 56 years old, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But I think I just to wrap up my opening statement, I just want to say that the things that I think are wrong with this movie are wrong in general with the way Hollywood adapts movies from books. And I'll go into that more later, but I'd love to hear the good stuff about this movie.
Well, the good stuff, you know, once you get past the surface level, you get to some of the, you know, fun, bizarre takes, which is, I think, where this movie really shines. Like the notion that, you know, how in the beginning of the film, you have the kid, he's sort of startled by his entire room shaking and his radiator threatening to explode. Well, there are some theories out there that the radiator actually did explode, and that this whole thing, this whole adventure is happening because he's dead and or dying, which explains why him from the future narrating this is voiced by Tom Hanks, but so is the train conductor and the scary hobo and you know, a lot of other characters in the film that he meets, including Santa. And, you know, and to me, it makes a lot of weird things happening just sort of not snap, but, you know, click together, and it becomes a fascinating, you know, just experience to watch. Like, so this kid's for sure dead. Yeah, that's why they're surviving skiing down a train with the wind resistance, and he hasn't frozen to death even one time on his way to the North Pole.
I love that theory, and that totally explains why the hobo says in this really scary voice, like, "Do you believe in ghosts?"
It's pretty good. I got a lot of joy out of it that way, but also, you know, Tom Hanks is a national treasure. You know, say what you want about the movie as a whole, nobody doesn't love Tom Hanks, and so this movie crams as much Tom Hanks as it feels like it can get away with, right in there, right up into your eyes. And look, I'll be the first to admit that the animation style has not held up to the test of time. It does make everybody look like they're trying to treat their chronic face tumors with Botox. But hey, you know, if you can't look past those, if you can't take off your glasses and look at your screen, then what are we even doing here?
Yeah, that would have helped. No, I admit that it's an important movie in the scheme of things when it comes to motion capture technology, which it was one of the originators. And yeah, there's a lot of great projects that we wouldn't have had if it were not for this movie coming first. But I know I'm not supposed to say stuff like that because it's against my position in the debate. But there's just so much to hate about this movie that I had to say at least one good thing. But yeah, I do agree that Hanks is pretty good as the conductor, and I hadn't heard the the hero kid dies theory before, but I was sort of thinking about why he plays the hero kid and the conductor and Santa Claus and a couple of other characters. What I thought was, since it's Robert Zemeckis directing, and there's a couple of Back to the Future references in the movie, there's a flux capacitor that you can see in the locomotive room and stuff like that. Yeah, and I mean, he's in love with that movie, as I am. I mean, honestly,
aren't we all?
Yeah, it's one of the perfectly scripted time travel movies of all time. But yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, it's a time travel thing. It's a time travel reference. Like it's like he's gone back in time to, or he's from the future helping his younger self embrace the believer in him. So he's the conductor and the kid, interestingly enough. But one of my big complaints about the movie is that they really get it wrong from the book. In the book, the hero kid, Chris, is he's a believer in Santa Claus from the very beginning. And that's why he hears the train. That it all makes sense if you look at it that way. And if you've never read the book, this isn't going to make any sense to you, because in the movie, because they had to pad it out to 90 minutes, they couldn't have the simple story in the book carry the movie. It would take forever to do each scene. So what they did instead is create this hero's journey for the kid, where he has to disbelieve at the beginning, yet he still somehow gets on the train, and his journey is getting to the point of belief, which he really has at the beginning of the book.
Well, here's the thing about adaptations and source material, and I'm sure we will cover this more when we talk about Lord of the Rings, Travis, is that the source material, in order to make a good film, cannot actually matter. It's one of those things. Anything and everything is on the table to be able to be changed if it helps you tell a better story for the medium. Which is why, sometimes in adaptations, you'll get characters who are cut, sometimes characters who are just mushed together, and sometimes a character introduced, usually to just explain the plot to the other characters. And frankly, I feel like this is where the movie shines the most. And
Beer of the week!
that is
Shut
the beer of the week.
hell up, Jeremy.
I will
you
do so
very
gladly.
much.
Thank
Beer of the
you.
week. Or whatever you're drinking. It's not really beer of the week anymore.
Hey, it's
Now
beer of
it's
the week in
just
spirit.
fermented drink of the week.
I screwed up the beer of the week. I changed that narrative.
Well, yeah. I think we were wandering off that path a long time ago, though.
We were.
Jeremy started wandering off it almost immediately. But I haven't. I'm still holding it down.
All right.
I am, however, bringing a beer that I think we've already had on this show, but that's okay because it's a Christmas classic for me. Some old Rasputin from North Coast.
All right.
Seems like a character who would have fit right in the Polar Express. Because, boy, they did not have any safety regulations. That was some medieval-ass stuff happening there.
Well, that one
Also,
was standard procedure to throw somebody off the back of the train.
I cannot wait to talk about that whole Christmas tree scene in the town square, but that's for another time. For now, I'm gonna crack an old Rasputin.
Rasputin's whole life was Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He got on the Polar Express when he was a kid.
I'm pretty sure he had a
And he
time
never
when
forgot
was
about it.
That man was not real. That man was not a real person.
Real is subjective.
That's right. That's right.
All right.
Okay, who's next? Travis, go ahead.
All right. I don't think I've done this one. I hope I haven't done this one. I'm running out of the whiskeys I already own. But I'm sticking to the whiskey this year. So Montana Bonded, Dry Hills Distillery. Yeah.
Shout out.
I've had it before, but I don't really remember what it tasted like because I've only had it once.
Oh, dang it. Now you have to try it all over again.
I think it's made right here in my new hometown, Bozeman, Montana. Yep, there it is, right here, Bozeman,
Well, that's a
Montana.
great shout out.
Dry Hills.
Yeah, you did it.
If you like skiing, hiking, anything outdoors, rock climbing, Bozeman, Montana is the place for you. I also wanted to advertise. I got this mug from Lyle Lovett and his large band. It's not big, it's large. So,
Isn't it ever?
Nice.
Cool.
Ah, beautiful.
What do you got, Victor?
I'm drinking white wine tonight because I don't have any beer handy, but the wine is local. It's from Mark Ryan Wineries. They make a bunch of really fancy, expensive wines, and they also make this, which is not expensive. It's like $15 a bottle, and it is called the Vincent. It has if you're looking for a cool Chardonnay, it's got a nice looking motorcycle on the label, and I highly recommend it. It tastes like a much more expensive wine than it is, but I've been drinking it pretty much exclusively for the last couple of years.
Nice.
Well, hell yeah.
Great
And
shout out.
you know,
We'll
you
put a
basically
link.
sold me on it with the cool label, which is basically how I pick any drink.
It's
Indeed.
important. Yeah.
And what drink did you pick, Jeremy?
Well, this week I do have the I'll say the byproducts or leftovers from some baking I've been doing. So I've got this Diplomatico rum, and I've mixed it with some citrus infused simple syrup that I've got.
Nice.
So cheers,
Nice.
everyone.
Cheers.
cheers.
That's pretty
Christmas.
fancy, pal.
I know, I'm bougie as shit.
Yeah. All right.
Crazy.
You guys really brought it with the culture this time. Even me. I mean, Old Rasputin's a relatively fancy beer as well.
Yes, the culture.
An
Well, this is
Imperial Stout.
this isn't just a show talking about movies. It's film studies.
Yes, film studies.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
Beautiful.
Pleasure to drink with you, gents.
Likewise,
President.
Victor.
The
Thanks for being
pleasure is
here.
ours.
All right. And you know what else is a pleasure? Learning.
Yeah.
You know, we got lots of educators here, and one of them is my brother Travis. He is, I think, do you educate, Victor, or no?
Just my clients from time to time, but mostly they educate me.
That's a good answer. That's that you know what you're doing up there on the microphone for sure.
Oh,
Mhm.
he's good.
Okay, Travis, educate us.
All right,
You're the
well,
prophet.
we will start with Robert Zemeckis, the director of this film. As Victor has already mentioned for us, he is the director of the Back to the Future trilogy, which all three movies good. Some people have a little mixed feelings on part 3, but I think it's hard to argue it's a bad movie. It's probably the worst of the 3, but still a very good movie. Romancing the Stone, very popular. Forrest Gump. He made Contact, very Spielberg-esque. Alien First Contact movie. Some people forget he was the director of Castaway. So the guy was just throwing a lot of home runs for a
Throwing a
long
lot
time.
of Tom Hanks at the wall.
Lots of good stuff at the wall. Yep, Forrest Gump. He really got a good relationship going with Tom Hanks as an actor there. And then he decided to dip his toe into this new style of filmmaking, which was motion capture animated films. And he didn't just do this once. I think this is something people forget. Polar Express was his first, and it was actually, it goes in the Guinness Book of World Records of 2006 as the first all digital capture film. So he did for mocap animation what Lord of the Rings did for mocap with Smeagol. Like, he kickstarted it. And then he proceeded to do it 2 movies in a row. So in 2004, he made Polar Express. 2007, he made Beowulf. And in 2009, he made A Christmas Carol. All 3 of those used the same technology.
Yeah.
And whatever you think of the results of the films plot-wise, you can see it get better. Like, he started to perfect that craft of how to do a mocap film. And then he didn't touch it this is why I'm going on this whole tangent of facts. He didn't touch it for 9 years. He didn't do another mocap film until 2018, where he dipped his toe into mixing mocap with live action, and he did this movie called Welcome to Marwin with Steve Carell.
Yeah.
Very, very strange film. We could talk about that on the show. I have a lot of thoughts about it. And then he would do it again in 2022 with Pinocchio, which was a bomb, like really not good. I don't think it was Zemeckis' fault, but that's another conversation for another time. So yeah, he like basically pioneers this technology and then leaves it alone for 9 years and then picks it up again. I thought that was a very fun fact. But for the Polar Express, again, in the Guinness Book of World Records, is the first all digital capture film. 3 different actors played Hero Boy. Tom Hanks did the motion capture and adult voice. Daryl Sabera did a lot of the voice acting for the child. And Josh Hutcherson actually did some additional mocap because the frame of Tom Hanks didn't fit for a lot of the kid scenes.
Sure.
So Josh Hutcherson, being like a teen boy, he had to do some of the like little kid scenes so that it worked a little better, not just an adult trying to like pretend to be a child. This book, the book that Victor mentioned, was from the same author as Jumanji and Zathura. So
interesting.
has had 3 of his books adapted into very popular teenage and children films. What was the other one? Oh, this is a fun little one. In the North Pole communications room, when they're at Santa's home, an elf describes a bad little boy in New Jersey named Steven who terrorizes his 2 little sisters. That's actually a nod to Steven Spielberg, who frequently mentioned that he picked on his 2 little sisters when he was a child. And so Robert was making a direct little nod to his friend Steven Spielberg. And then we've already mentioned the flux capacitor shows up, which is a cool little thing. One little thing, if you notice, before Hero Boy boards the Polar Express, I don't think this is much of a, like, I think people got this. The clock says 11:55. The time doesn't actually start moving again until they get their first presents on Christmas Day, which is, I think, very intentional. But yeah, that is, oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention, and this will come up again, I'm sure, in our open talk, the importance of mocap. Without this movie, we would not get The Adventures of Tintin, Happy Feet, great movie, Monster House, which was fantastic, or the one that I think is the, like, when I saw, we wouldn't have this if Zemeckis hadn't started the ball rolling. Clone Wars season 7, episode 10, Darth Maul versus Ahsoka, is entirely mocap, uses the same technology the Polar Express pioneered, but perfects it. Probably the best, whatever you think of Clone Wars, that lightsaber fight is arguably the best lightsaber fight in the entirety of Star Wars. And it is done with motion capture technology that Zemeckis really did pioneer. So I think that's, like, hats off to him. We'll get into what we actually think, but I can't ever fully hate this movie because of what it gave us in that tech. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a very logical and well-supported argument for liking this movie. I definitely don't have one of those in my pocket, which is why I didn't want to debate it.
Those are my fun facts. My fermented.
It's because he loves it so deliriously much that he can't really articulate all that love.
That could be it. It was that was awesome. That was awesome, and it has done very important things for film in general, which Victor also acknowledged. So yeah, I think we all recognize that here. Do you have any other fun facts that you might know off the cuff, Victor?
Yeah, I would add to what Travis said. Yeah, without Polar Express, we wouldn't have had Peter Jackson's King Kong in 2005. That's a direct
Mhm.
offshoot of that. The Na'vi characters from Avatar, the character Clue from Tron Legacy, and you already mentioned Monster House, which I love. I love that movie.
Monster House, great.
Yeah. And
And
I
countless
guess
Marvel whatevers, since they
Yeah.
use that for Hulk
Tons.
and anybody else large and or green.
Yeah. Anyone out there, if you're wondering why they decided to use this technology for this movie, first, it's because, I mean, obviously Tom Hanks and Zemeckis really wanted to make the movie, and they couldn't feasibly make the movie as you can see it in live action for anything that they could afford. So this was the most, even though it was the most expensive animated movie ever made for its time, it was still the least expensive way they could have made this vision of this movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, Travis and I have talked so many times about how many fantasies would be better if they quit trying to make them live action and just animate them. Like Wheel of Time is a good example of that. Because they didn't really get the magic great in my opinion. And I think it would have just been better animated, you know?
Mhm.
Magic
think it-
always looks like 50 to 60% cooler animated.
Hard magic. I think that's.
Minimum.
I think we've mentioned that on the show, but
Mhm,
just to
mhm.
reiterate, like hard magic systems, where it's like very visible. That's why Game of Thrones works live action, because there's not really much seen.
Yeah.
That's why Lord of the Rings works live action, because there's really not a lot of magic that's actually seen on the screen. And then, but when you get into like, when I watched Castlevania on Netflix
Castlevania was
for
so
the
sick.
first time,
Hell
I was
yeah.
like, this is fantasy magic, like
Yeah.
done so well.
Yeah, that was
And
great.
every book I read with a hard magic system, I'm like, please just make it an anime. Like that's what I want to see.
Right. And imagine if they did Arcane, you know, like, I mean, even Arcane, it feels like to me, if they tried to do that live action, it would be like 50% less cool. Because the
Significant
fight scenes
less-
are awesome in that.
I do want to, I know we're going to go on open discussion soon, but direct question to you, Victor. I heard you mention you work in video games. So,
I did, yeah.
So how do you feel that relates to this movie? Because like when I was watching it, that is kind of the thought I had the whole time of like, this looks like a video game cutscene. Like,
Yeah.
and like maybe it looks like the jumping off point for a lot of video games we've got, like Uncharted and ones that I can think of, The Last of Us, that have become basically movies because mocap has gotten so good. But was it a jumping off point that you know of, or
Yes.
what is the little marriage between the two?
Yes, I totally agree with what you said. Like, I think that almost all video games these days use motion capture to some degree. But the connective tissue, I think, was right after Polar Express. The Epic engine used mocap in their build of something. It wasn't a super famous game, but it ended up being the system that everybody wanted to use, and then it went forward from that. I forget the name of the game, but but it did have a direct impact on the gaming industry. And yeah, I mean, of course the gaming industry jumped on it because it's all CG, so that's a perfect fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the CG version of rotoscoping somebody in 2D animation. So
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think
glad we came up with that.
that's such a cool thing that has and pardon me if I just don't have good video game knowledge, but it seems to me like it has opened the door to some more narrative freedom with video games. Like I can't imagine before this technology existed getting a game like Death Stranding, or is that it, Death Standing, of like that game is so weird. Like if someone were to describe that as a video game to me back in like the early 2000s, I'd be like, why would you want to play that? Like, but now it's like, yeah, you can literally immerse yourself into this dark creative world, and like there's enough entertainment button smashing to keep you involved in the game aspect of it.
Totally.
But legitimately what you're doing is just playing through a movie. And I don't know, Victor, was that something that was happening before to your knowledge, or is this like this kind of stuff opened the door 100%?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it helped. But yeah, I mean, video games have been, well, some video games have been going for that immersive effect since the beginning, I guess. Well, I mean, maybe not as early as the arcade days, but for home entertainment, certainly PlayStation 1 games were attempting that. I mean, Silent Hill, I think, is a pretty good example. And I guess Twisted Metal and Gran Turismo, they're all like simulator style games. I mean, with the different degrees of cartoonishness for fun, but I mean, they all immerse you in the world, and the physics are supposed to be convincing for the player. So he can sort of, it tricks the brain into thinking you really are in a race car, or you really are in a haunted hospital, or what have you.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar
basically,
to Well, I was just gonna say it's similar to like when you're in a car, you don't think, "Yep, I'm going to turn this wheel, and then the car is going to go to the left." You think, "I'm going to go left," and then your car does it. It's crazy.
No, that's a good point too. We're basically already an open table, but we do usually start by letting whoever attacked speak their true feelings on the film in case they had to lie. And then Jeremy will do the same, and then we'll hop right back into just freestyle conversation. So
Okay,
Victor, what did you actually think?
I really did hate it. Yeah, no, I didn't have to try very hard. I mean, I think we covered the positive things about the movie's impact. And I mean, honestly, okay, so in the movie's defense, there's a lot of movies throughout cinematic history that I don't particularly like, but I recognize are important to filmmaking. And like without this certain camera move, then you wouldn't have had these cool movies or these cool movies, because it's a evolutionary art form. And it's not very old. I mean, movies are only about 100 years old. So, directors learn very fast. And, before the internet age, what directors would do to educate themselves on how to make movies is watch other movies. Like they just watched other movies all day. And they learned. And that's one of the reasons why like Hitchcock is so important, because he, the way he treated the camera was skilled and unique, and it was easy for other directors to see how he did things, and then try to bring that to their own works. So one of the reasons I personally love a few of the Hitchcock movies. I'm not a huge fan of all of them, but there's no question that he had a huge impact on filmmaking. Yeah, in addition to everything we said, it was the first feature released in 35 millimeter and IMAX 3D simultaneously. I'm pretty sure that's, I don't know what that means, but it sounds challenging to do it simultaneously, because you only have a certain number of resources as a studio. But I think the most important thing that we haven't said about Polar Express is that it wasn't released by Disney. And Disney needs competition. Like, we live in a capitalist system. We need to make sure to not let Disney rest on its laurels and kick out, the same movie over and over again that they know the kids are going to go see because they're the only game in town. It's movies like this that challenge them and say, hey, this is a different studio. We're doing a different type of family movie. Go see this. That, catapults Disney to think hard and bring more quality to their movies. And a rising tide lifts all ships, that kind of thing. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Shout out to DreamWorks and Shrek.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Shrek.
All
and
Shrek all day.
DreamWorks.
Yeah.
I'll Shrek all day.
A
Shrek
Shrekingly
would be
good
a
time.
Shrek would be a fun one to do on the show.
Did that
Yeah.
exact same thing. I love that you said that, Victor. But Jeremy, we got a whole time to.
Yeah, we got a lot of time.
Oh yes.
Jeremy, what did you
well,
actually think?
Yes. Well, this movie it's bad. It's a bad movie. Look, did I find a way to enjoy it? Yes, of course I did. I wouldn't be the dedicated content showing up and doing guy that I am if I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And yes, I think this movie is much more watchable when you think like, this kid dead? This is a dead kid. This kid might be dead. But
What did you Google how to make Polar Express good? And they were like,
no.
think about
What
the
had-
kid being dead.
What had happened was I was helping my brother move, and then I let him know that I had to cover this later this same day, and he's like, okay, I'll just put it on. And he said, like, oh, have you heard the theory where the kid actually dies in the beginning and then is like, that's the rest of the movie? Like, oh. So
You're
then
like,
I just went into the whole movie looking for that. And, that really worked for me because on like a functional, like story and animation and really anything else that makes something a movie, it's wild to think of some of the implications of the stuff, like the scary train hobo.
my favorite
Based
character.
on he's great.
Shout
Based
out.
on his appearances, though, I think he's like a safety feature of the train. He keeps the
He's the only one if he is.
like it's like the conductor. He talks about how he almost fell off the train and somebody grabbed him and he didn't know who, and it's like, hey, it doesn't even matter. Like, okay, cool, that's neat, but like, but it seems like if you just wander off and like come into mortal peril, he'll just show up and get you back to where you're supposed to be. Or if you linger in the spooky train car, he's gonna scare your ass out of there
Right. Yeah.
and disappear in a puff of snow. How does he do it? I don't know. Also, why?
Magical realism.
Sure,
Yeah.
why
That's
not?
how.
Yeah,
And also, if the hero kid had not gone up on the roof of the train, the hobo just would have been lurking up there for the whole movie, and we'd never know.
In theory.
Super
Well,
creepy.
well, technically, in the beginning, they show him just hanging out under the train.
Yeah, he was.
Mhm.
He was hanging
So,
out
Yeah.
under the train.
Yeah,
And that happens
presumably-
actually really quick. It's kind of that's actually one of the shots that I liked a lot because
Yeah.
it was one of those things that like caught your eye. And it
You're
was
like,
like,
"Ooh,
pay attention
doing
to that. Why is a
something."
guy sleeping under the train? And when I first saw it, I was like, well, that's just another ridiculous thing in this movie. That's fine. But they very clearly show the hole in the shoe and everything, so then it's easy to tie it back. And they have an identifiable. That was a well put together little Easter egg.
I know. It's like, ooh, you've made one of these before, I bet. Hot diggity daffodil. But
Yeah,
I think it bears stating that FilmJoy looked at this movie and their review was, "This is the worst movie I've ever watched with you,"
Oh,
and that was their full review
that's
of
too bad.
that.
I have a hot take. I don't by
Hot
any
take.
hot take. I don't by any standards think this is a great movie. Definitely not. I'm not requesting anyone or telling anyone to go rush home watch the Polar Express.
I'm urging them to do that.
Just
And it
remember that the
definitely-
kid's dead.
The uncanny valley is insane in this movie. Like, it is so bad. But
Yeah.
that being said, I didn't read the book.
Mhm.
So this kind of like standard hero's journey of belief, and maybe it's all a dream sequence. I kind of went in thinking like, I think this is all a dream. Like the way they're setting it up, it all seems to be a dream. And when I kind of went in like that, I was like, oh, coming off the coattails of our last episode, Hogfather, I was like, okay, this is kind of a less good version of that whole concept of we have to believe for things to like, for the things that are good in the world. We just have to have faith in some things. Because I really liked that in Hogfather. There's that line that's like, to believe in justice, you just kind of have to have this like faith. The sun will rise if you believe it will. Kind of this whole belief thing. I don't know. I don't think the movie did a terrible job with that. Again, having not read the book. It does have some really weird, creepy scenes with the hobo, but I'm also watching it for the first time as an adult. So those like hit my philosophical brain of like, yeah, I can see why this is in the movie. If I was 10, I might have been like, like this isn't good. But no, I don't hate this movie. I think it did some good things. It kind of falls in the same place for me as, and I'm glad you mentioned, Victor, Avatar, of like pioneering film, very simplistic story, not awful, but not good. Like, I'm glad James Cameron made Avatar. I'll never rewatch it. I hope he keeps revolutionizing this technology, though.
Yeah.
And he does it through these like basic plots that aren't terrible, but aren't good. That's kind of where Polar Express falls.
Saying that Polar Express has a plot is very generous of you. But I have to jump in here. Jeremy, I know you had your hand raised, but I have to jump in here and say, what's y'all's problem with my hobo, dude? He's the only one that saves anybody in this film.
Yeah,
the conductor is 10 times creepier of a character.
Yeah.
This guy is like, get on the damn train. Watch my little cool punchy trick. You don't have your ticket? Come with me. You're officially enslaved by the Polar Express. That was on the ticket. It's not my fault you lost it. Get to work. Like, it wasn't like a great thing. And also took a kid up on top of the train, a snowy train, right before they're knowingly going into this like glacier pass. Like, are you kidding me?
He had a
the
lantern.
hobo's the only one watching out for anybody.
He had a lantern.
Yeah.
They're trying to go to the.
Have you ever used a lantern, dog? Like in real life? Have you ever used?
Actually,
they're the worst.
You forget I wore a hipster in high school, Clay. I read by lantern light a lot.
Well, they're the worst. If you're in a blizzard, especially, and also especially if you're on a train and instead of a headlamp where you can use both your hands, you have a lantern and a kid in the other hand. So hopefully no one biffs it because you're all on the same line. Anyway, my hobo's pulling people from the jaws of death, you know.
He's great.
And everybody's coming after him like he's all
I
creepy.
love that guy.
Although he did give somebody sock coffee, which is definitely not cool. That's something that should always be consensual. If you're going to drink sock coffee, like, you shouldn't just drop that on somebody.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jeremy, is your hand raise still relevant?
Oh yes, it's still very relevant because Travis brought up a nice thing about what is essentially the core focus of this movie, and that's belief. But I will say that the main kid, he doesn't ever actually believe in Santa. He goes from wondering if Santa is real to actually meeting Santa face to face. That's not belief. That's like me believing in you, Travis. I don't have to. You're Travis. You're right there.
I've been to your wedding and shook your hand there.
Yeah. Like,
did you believe in Travis before that?
I'm pretty sure I met him before I even had a chance to question his existence.
That's a good
point. It was just a thing of like, by the way, this is Travis. Like, sick.
And I will fully admit I only watched half of this movie because I was rushing. But Victor, I had the question to you, because I don't know if anyone else here has read the book. How bad does it stray in that kind of, it's like doesn't have much of a plot. It's this wild, is that the book, this like haphazard tale of belief that's shambled together, or is it more cohesive?
Yeah, no, it's definitely cohesive. It's focused. And, you know, whenever I watch a movie or watch a TV series, I often in my mind go, is this the right format in media to tell this story? Because there are a lot of TV shows that are very padded. It's like, okay, if I look at the 6 episodes of this TV series, could I have condensed it into one 60-minute episode and not altered the plot? And if the answer is yes, you just wasted 5 hours of your time. But that's the point. The book is very simple compared to the movie. They just, what I feel Zemeckis and Hanks should have done is made a TV special, kind of like a Charlie Brown Christmas or something like that.
Yeah.
It was like 40 minutes. That would have been a perfect fit for the story. It's cool. Like I said before, it's not a hero's journey in the book. It's a discovery narrative, kind of like Spirited Away or Dante's Inferno or something like that. Like it doesn't, like the narrator or the protagonist doesn't go through a serious change and challenge and loss and all that stuff in those books. They just see something that's fantastic, and they take it in, and they are richer for the experience at the end. That's what the Polar Express book is like.
Yeah.
I was gonna say too, like, what do you think of trying to view this as a different kind of story? It's just a completely different format. We've spoken a lot to the impact it had on mocap and the importance of that technological development and somebody really committing to it, and making movies, and making it happen. I did feel like, and this is, I thought of this because it's what I would use to defend this movie. I saw it as like more an exploration of that new medium than it was an actual story about really anything. Because there's minimal character development. There's really minimal like internal dialogue. Basically all we get on this roller coaster ride of a movie, it's 90% roller coaster. Like, honestly, you're just flying on stuff and doing cool things. Like, what they were really trying to do with this movie, to me, is tell that story through those like actions, and sort of spread those messages just through visuals and the ride. It was way more about like the ride than it was the characters on the ride. Right. At least that's how it felt to me. But what do you guys think about that idea?
I mean, that makes sense, especially when the movie literally turns into one of those YouTube videos where you're on a roller coaster. So, yeah. And the story is, I mean, it's barely there, especially when the movie just gets bored and starts doing whatever. And it has all those clones pour people hot chocolate and shit.
Yeah, it's also
I'm less looking for confirmation too, and more just like what you think about that as an exploration of the medium too.
Yeah.
There's certainly like doing, like trying everything they can with this one thing they saw Andy Serkis do pretty good in Lord of the Rings, and just seeing just exactly the furthest limits of what is even possible at the time. And I feel like that was more a focus than basically anything else in the making of this movie.
Oh yeah, and I can imagine going to see this in a movie theater, which I didn't. The uncanny valley would be even more pronounced because the faces would be giant. Like I was watching it on a laptop, so
definitely.
Yeah. That's one of the problems I had with the movie is the roller coaster and all the extra characters that aren't in the book, that don't really have much of a character arc anyway, and don't really interact with the kid that much. It's really it takes away from the one cool, like when he meets Santa Claus. It's a pretty good scene in the movie, but you're totally burned out at that point. Like you've literally been on a roller coaster ride. You almost crashed into a herd of caribou. You sliding around on the ice. I mean, compared to all that, it's no big deal when he meets Santa, and it's supposed to be a big deal. So, yeah. they lost it. They lost track of the theme there.
I have two things, and the last one's a question because it's been burning on my mind since I finished like speed watching the first 45 minutes of this film. But the first thing is like the wide shots in this movie, and I kept noticing that anytime we're in an intimate scene with characters' faces, I'm like, no, get me out of here. But wide shots, I was like, this is gorgeous. Like what they're doing here with the train from a distance, with like the weird scene that's just thrown in there of like the wolves running and the eagle getting the ticket. I was
One
like,
of the best scenes in the movie.
I was like, why is this here? But man, it looks good.
Also, this is a tangent. Did the wolves run off a cliff during that? Because that's what it looked like happened.
Don't question it. Don't
Mm.
question
They
it.
ran down a shoulder. They can
ran down a
totally
shoulder.
do that.
Yeah, for
Hey,
sure.
that's fine then.
But that leads to my second question, and I've had this burning in my mind since our Evil Dead episode, and I didn't really get to voice it. How much credit do we give to the first? Like in modern time, when we're rewatching these things and we're judging them and critiquing them based on all these different criteria of how did the story do, how did the voice acting do, how much credit do we give to the pioneer? Because like I think there's a lot of movies and even books that we look back on, and maybe part of the merit we give to them is because they were the pioneer, but do they deserve that still? Because they were the first domino flick, and to what extent, and how do we decide that is a big question.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I think we were talking about adaptations of literary works before, and I think like Jaws is a really good example of a movie that exceeds the book. So I mean that was a super famous hit movie, ultra entertaining, and I think it deserves it. And it was a pioneer in how it was presented to the public, like the type of movie it was, and the level. It was really it was the start of that whole wave in Hollywood of super smart, super young directors making genre films because they wanted to, not because the studio told them that's what was going to sell and that's what the movie they had to make was. So yeah, that was cool. And I think this is a bad example of an adaptation where there should have been somebody in that room with Hanks and Zemeckis going, guys, maybe we should adapt something else.
Or somebody saying, hey, maybe don't Tokyo drift a train across a frozen lake.
You don't really need to do that. You've already crammed so much adventure down my throat. That was my biggest problem with the movie too, Victor, because I agree with you. By the time we got to Santa Claus, we'd already had like 3 crazy, like massive, life-threatening accidents threaten us. And then we get to Santa Claus and it's like, oh, I believe. And I'm like, well, he's standing right there. Of course you fucking believe. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. There. That was a great point, Jeremy.
Yeah, I believe this couch is what I'm sitting on.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
It's not like I thought that was the first thing I thought when he was having what was supposed to be his like epiphany moment, But the only thing I could think of was like, dude, if you still don't believe, like, what do you need to see? You have ridden a magical train all the way to the North Pole. You just went past a parade of elves. You watched that monstrosity of a hot chocolate serving scene.
God, the hot chocolate.
Which nothing in that movie is creepier than that hot chocolate scene.
So
I'm not a huge musical number fan, but man, that was abysmal. Like even amongst those types of scenes, I mean, as opposed to the sentence in the book that was adapted from, which is something like, I wish I could quote it verbatim, but it was like hot chocolate was poured from us that tasted like melted chocolate bars or something like that. It's like, oh, I get it. Like it's super rich, and that's great. That's all it needs. Like that, I got a warm flash just reading that. But yeah, the movie was just like, I was like, this is the hot chocolate scene? Wow.
They devoted a solid like minute and a half to that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like they brought out the hot chocolate, told the kids not to let it cool down. Like those are like most of the lines of the song. Then everybody downed their hot chocolate in like 30 seconds. Then everyone just left. So, which only means one thing, is that everybody just burned the fuck out of their mouths. Just they don't give a shit about the roof of their mouth, which is good because it's gone now.
Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah.
I've got so many things to say, but both of them off Victor. Two things off Victor's comments, and yeah, we'll see how this goes. First, I totally agree with you on like the pacing of an adaptation is such a problem, and I think one of the adaptations I've seen do it so well recently is Netflix's adaptation of the series of unfortunate events, and they did triplet episodes. I was like, that's perfect. Like,
yeah, it's about all you need.
One season cut, it does 2 books, and I hope that Greta Gerwig's Narnia on Netflix does the same thing. Because I'm like, if you try and make Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe into a full like 20 episode season, there's not enough there. Like, I love those books. There's not enough there.
There was so little in any of those books.
And
keep going, Trav. Just keep on going, buddy. We're not talking about Narnia.
But,
yeah, I mean, even like Lord of the Rings, great adaptation by Peter Jackson. The Hobbit, terrible adaptation because it's totally stretched out.
Roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yep.
They tried to turn it into a damn roller coaster.
Yep. The second thing I wanted to touch on that you said, oh wow, did I lose it? Oh no.
Sorry.
I lost it.
How dare you?
I blame you, Jeremy.
We're supposed to be professionals.
You steered me off with Narnia. My brain started getting in defensive mode.
Jeremy knows where the low-hanging fruit is, and he just swings for the fences at it.
I'm just going to pick it. What am I going to do? Get a ladder to pick the fruit? Come on.
This is Jeremy. He picks the easiest fruit.
I'm going to grab a fruit I can reach.
You're a survivor. I'll give you that, pal.
6 to 8 feet. That's my max.
Oh, that's the thing. Okay, thank you. It came back. Zemeckis, you said, Victor, like someone should have been in that room telling him, like, let's adapt something else. I'm just blown away that it wasn't one room that this happened with. He did Polar Express, and then 2 years later, he's like, hey, that mocap movie I made that's been mixed reviews. Yeah, we're going to adapt the oldest Norse story of all time in the same medium. And no one was like, that's a bad idea.
I know. Yeah, I saw that in the theater.
And then Christmas Carol, like 3 times he did this.
Yeah, he really gave it a fair shake. I don't know what else. It's The Christmas Carol, starring Jim Carrey. It's a bold choice to make even after the perfect Christmas Carol movie had already come out, which is A Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine.
Honestly, the Muppets slap every time. Like Muppets on Treasure Island, also the best Treasure Island movie.
I was about to say,
yeah.
It's Muppets Treasure Island and then Treasure Planet right below.
Treasure Planet, yeah.
Treasure Planet's dope as well.
But you saw Beowulf in theaters, Victor?
I went to see it by myself in a movie theater because I'm a huge Beowulf fan, and I was like, "Whoa! Finally, an animated version of Beowulf!" And I was like, "That's it."
But so lackluster. I was so excited.
I thought the whole point of Beowulf was that Beowulf rules. They really should have just nailed that.
Yeah. They didn't. But yeah, like one of the things I wanted to comment on was just comparing the movie and the book. This is where they are, I think, farthest apart. Is there's a I don't even know what this is called because I haven't studied much art, but in illustration there's a phenomenon where that anime has embraced, where you have simplified facial features in animation and in two-dimensional art, where it's easy for the viewer to project their own image into the character. Like the simpler the face, the more universal people can make the character and identify with that character. In movies, especially live action movies, obviously you can't do that because the actors all have faces. But this movie takes that to the extreme of having very inhuman faces for all the not intentionally, but I mean, that's the level of technology at the time. That was the best they could do. So it has the opposite effect, and I think this goes together with what I thought was really cool about the book, which was the message is that the kid is an odd man out believer, and he's proven right by the journey. Like, he's shown that what he believes in is true. It's just that most people don't see it. And that's okay. And like, it's okay to have basically what I interpreted is like, it's okay, kids, if you have a really active imagination. Not everybody does, but you can still enjoy life that way, and it can still be special to you. Whereas in the movie, it's like, the kid, if you happen to project yourself into the hero kid, it's a weird set of circumstances where you're like, oh yeah, I don't believe in Santa Claus, but then you're confronted with Santa Claus, so you're like, I guess he exists, and that's it. That's the message. It's just weird.
Yeah, I have my question for you is this, Victor. So you watched the movie first, and then you read the book?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you, by any chance, remember how you felt about the movie before reading the book? And how is it different for you?
Well, like I said before, I'm quite old, so I didn't seek the movie out when it came out. Although I did see the Harry Potter movies, which I think maybe aimed at a slightly older audience, but I enjoyed those when those came out. But this was released by the same studio at roughly the same time as the Harry Potter movies, so it was a fantasy adaptation of a fantasy book. And I can see maybe why some of the suits at Universal said, yeah, or Warner Brothers said, yeah, let's do this. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
I'm just wondering how you felt about the movie before reading the book. What was your opinion of it before you read the book?
I just didn't. I wasn't interested in checking it out. I felt that I outaged it by the time it came out.
Oh, but how about after you watched it? This time, I mean.
After I watched it,
yeah,
I thought it was a bit pointless. I know it does. Something we haven't mentioned is that it does have a hit song embedded in it that got a lot of radio play, and I think it got a Grammy for
it did.
Beyonce and Josh Groban. But
Josh
the
Groban.
one they sing on the back of the train.
Right. But yeah. What I felt about the movie before I read the book was that it accomplishes things that other movies accomplish better. Either before or after it. Like, the hot chocolate scene is nowhere near as cool as the Be Our Guest scene in Beauty and the Beast, which obviously was their style guide. But it's it's in a train, and it's just chocolate, and it's as we've already talked about, it doesn't really make much sense. So those are the things that kind of really brought it down. When I watch a movie, I really, especially the first movie in a franchise, if it's a franchise, I really want it to add something new that I haven't thought of before or seen before. Honestly, the coolest thing was something that never even occurred to me about the movie, which is what Jeremy said about the theory that it's all like in the kid's mind's eye as he's dying.
I'm pretty sure that radiator exploded.
Yeah, that's pretty rad.
I think you're killing it, Victor. You're opening up all these waves in my brain that I'm like, now I have 4 more thoughts. First, that not only did Harry Potter kind of release at the same time as this, arguably the best, most well-made Harry Potter movie came out at the same time. 2004 was Prisoner of Azkaban, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, 2-time Academy Award winner. And I rewatched those recently, and I remember as a teenager, I didn't like Prisoner of Azkaban because I was a book purist, but I watched it now and I was like, holy crap, like the level of filmmaking that this is higher than like a lot of these other ones. These are all good movies, but this one is like sticks out as
Man.
Yeah.
There's a
so
reason
good.
that one set the tone for the entire rest of the series,
Mhm.
whereas
Totally.
the first two were just very like, oh, yep, the book is now a screenplay.
And that's the comment I think Victor made of like, I think those were directed for more of a adult audience. I think the first two weren't. They were directed for Harry Potter fans. Like they're pretty basic films. But 3 was like, okay, we're going to take some risks here and see if they pay off. And they did. But then the other thing you said, when we talk about firsts and you talk about this concept of making a character faceless so you can kind of take the place of them, we've had 2 movies this year in 2024 that are now kind of stepping into this realm of POV. Nickel Boys and In a Violent Nature. In a Violent Nature being the horror one, Nickel Boys being about a reformatory school and kind of social justice film. It's probably going to get an Academy Award nom. But I just wonder, like, I don't know, anytime this kind of thing happens, especially with like In a Violent Nature, I think, are we going to be debating this in 10 years of like, this was the first, and now we're going to get this string of POV movies where it takes that to the extreme of now it's not a character that has no face that you're taking the place of. Now you are the main character. You're walking in their footsteps. And how will that be a fad that dies off in 2 years, or will it be like 10 years down the line, we're getting one of these movies every year?
Yeah, I don't think that is a really cool observation, and I do think there's a future in it. But I just think the masterpiece has yet to be made where it is a perfect fit for, I guess, projecting like a fantasy type scenario. They tried to do it with Hardcore Henry, which I never saw.
Yep,
but
I was going to bring that up as the pioneer of the POV thing.
Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, that it's an action movie, and I haven't seen it because I just thought of it and I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be really exciting for like 20 minutes, and then I'm going to be overloaded by.
It is. It has a lot of the same. It's funny that we talk about that with Polar Express. It has a lot of the same issues because it's like, this is cool. I'm glad you did this. I'm bored because like the same thing keeps happening over and over and over again, and you just kind of get mind blur on it.
Yeah.
But it opens the way for Nickel Boys, which I haven't seen yet, but I've heard is absolutely amazing. But yeah, like you say, like, right?
Yeah, I think POV elements and first person views in films are very useful, and they can work and do a lot of interesting things plot wise and visually. But I think the disconnect with it being an entire feature film, like with Hardcore Henry, is that ultimately you do the POV thing to put yourself in the character's shoes. And if you're in those shoes long enough, you're going to realize that you would do way different shit than Henry. And you're going to have that disconnect. And your suspension of disbelief will be gone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It does circle back though to like the video game comparison of
it makes it a lot easier.
That's been
so much easier in video games.
Totally.
That has been a part of video games for a really, really long time. That POV. I'm thinking of Doom. Yeah, but even
and you mentioned Violent Nature. And I mean, honestly, like the opening sequence in Halloween from 1978, and what's the other? Powell's movie, Peeping Tom. Like they use it to disturb the viewer. It's just like it's a point of view camera. It's not the whole movie. It's just a scene, but it's a point of view. And like in Halloween, for example, it's we put on a mask and we're going upstairs and we're killing a woman, and it's like what's going on? Why is this happening? And then the mask takes off and we're a kid. It's like shocking. I mean, for the first time you see it, I mean, we've all probably seen it a million times, but the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this movie about? Like, this is wild. But yeah, I think something like that needs to happen in a feature length form to really nail it for the future.
Yeah. I think too, like, oh man, I lost my train of thought, but
Curses.
it keeps happening. My brain does this all the time. I don't know.
We're meandering.
It'll come back. It'll come back. If it doesn't, that was good.
All right, so then I have a question, and this can be for anybody, and this is my typical. This is my typical gripe with films where Santa exists, and for any children watching, he does. And also stop watching. I've said fuck so many times in this show. But anyway, like, in a world where Santa is real and exists, how does anyone not believe in Santa when every year, like, real actual presents show up under your tree that nobody put there or purchased? Like, what's even going on that belief is even a thing about Santa? People's just like, yep, it's Santa. It is Santa.
Yeah.
Like, yep, that's Clay.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on this belief thing. And I mean, that was my biggest gripe with the movie in terms of character arc, is that there essentially wasn't one. Because that epiphany moment was completely undone by like mountains of irrefutable evidence. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's one thing for presents to show up under your tree. You can always doubt that your parents didn't have something to do with that, and you can't really refute them, because that's part of being a child, is you don't really have any authority. You don't have the real ability to refute and state your opinion. For the most part, you can do it, but like, if your parents say something happened this way, you just are ultimately going to kind of believe that, or force yourself to.
I mean, I guess it's kind of reasonable for kids to maybe not believe, but why does any adult anywhere not know for a fact there's a Santa when they're the ones setting up all the Christmas stuff? And they're like,
right,
I didn't bought that. The kids don't have jobs because of laws. And here's what's this about?
I think the only answer I can come up with from like a theological standpoint would be like, if the Santa presents only appear in certain houses, if Santa is essentially like miracles in my faith, like, where it's like there is evidence of miracles happening, but they're very seldom, and they're rare enough that when they happen, people dedicate their lives to refuting them, or just say like, oh, but that's over there. I haven't seen that in my life. So maybe that's Santa. Like, he only gives to the most needy families. And so it's like one family gets the presents and is like, did I like drunkenly buy my kids presents? Maybe, I guess. Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to forget about this. And they walk off. Like, maybe that's Santa. He gives to like the ones who need it, and everyone else just has to pretend, and we go on faith. That'd be my only answer. But if everybody's getting presents under the tree,
I mean, that's what they make it seem like. Every movie where somebody visits the North Pole, they're like, yep, Santa visits every house in the flippin' world.
But at the same time, and this leads into kind of maybe too deep of a conversation to get into this late in the show, but like,
probably,
I think when we think about that too much, if it was that irrefutable, if everybody got Santa presents every year, and some people got coal, you know what?
Now we're talking.
Like, that becomes
hell yes.
That becomes really huge. Like, it'd become like there would be anti-Santa protests. It'd be like, I was a good boy.
Absolutely.
Like, you gave me coal. Oh, like that. It would become a huge thing. And I think,
I mean, you're a teacher. Have you had to tell a kid's parents that they were not a good boy?
Yeah, 100%.
It doesn't go well.
But
Yeah. There
I
would
think-
be full-on military assaults on Santa's North Pole compound, and I want this movie on my desk Monday.
the deepness I think it speaks to, though, and I'm not at all saying Polar Express is teaching this message because I don't think it's that deep. But the deepness I think it speaks to is like, we want to believe when like belief, we want to think that like belief should just constantly be rewarded and faith should just constantly be rewarded. But if that actually happened, the quickness we would turn on a dime to being ungrateful would be insane. Like it would be like if we actually got all the things we asked for all the time, we would turn so fast to like, well, you gave me this yesterday, why won't you give it to me today? What the heck? Like that's human nature, you know.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah, humans do kind of suck sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, Victor, do you have any closing thoughts on that?
No, I think we said it all. Yeah, you guys brought up a lot of points that I didn't think about. But what I would like to wonder, or what I wonder is you know, is there a Polar Express drinking game?
100%.
Because that would probably improve the experience quite a bit.
And we will rate it very, very soon. Travis, what did you want to say?
I've found my thought again, and I just can't
Good.
without
I
asking
was
Victor. We're circling back. This is to everybody. I'm going to start with Victor though. Do you think? Because I think there's this weird psychological disconnect between the POV shot and the handheld camera movie. Like for some reason, the handheld camera movie, I don't have that thing that either Clay or Jeremy was talking about. I forget of like, I want to be in control. I, for some reason, still associate that with like, it's a different character, like holding this camera and I'm not in control. But when it's a POV, all of a sudden that does change. I don't know if that's a phenomenon you've all felt, but like, I love handheld camera horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's a POV, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. My guess would be if you're watching a found footage movie where it's just a camera bobbing around, it's like it's passive, like you're watching something somebody already shot. Whereas if there's no camera, even though it's the same method of filmmaking, where it's sort of the movie convinces you that you are this character and this is happening in real time, that's a lot more direct, I guess. You know, it's easier to it's harder to suspend your disbelief with the simulated real world POV as opposed to found footage. Yeah,
that's a really good point, Victor. I think something I gravitate towards naturally is like character driven stuff. I really do like to live within the character, and I do feel that sometimes if the medium becomes too centric for me, it's not usually my favorite thing. I think found footage has found a pretty good balance of making it largely about the character, though it's a very delicate razor wire line to walk to not turn that unbelievable. Only a few movies have managed to truly accomplish like, oh, this seems like something that somebody would have actually filmed all these shots. But it's very rare in a found footage movie where I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you be filming right now? You know, it's like there's definitely a point where, no, if you're that scared, you're putting your fucking camera down and running away. Like you are dropping your camera and you're not even thinking about it. But anyway, I digress. POVs, I think, have a sort of inherent different aspect to them compared to any other method of like visual medium that makes it really hard for me to focus on anything but the medium. So I think I generally don't like it for that reason. That's a very subjective answer, but I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
Like, because then there is a very significant difference when you're using the POV versus like doing something found footage, because when you're doing something found footage, there like you go to good lengths to make it sound like it's found footage. Like someone's shaking the camera and you can feel like the internal components kind of rattling with it and stuff. Whereas when you're in like POV, you can like hear the person breathing and sort of hear their footsteps. And if you're in the theater, feel them because that bass is kicking in and just right up through you.
Right.
And it's very different, and they're designed for two very different things. And I think Clay's right. It's with both of them, like there's a point in basically every found footage movie I've seen where, like, I don't care how much you care about the truth or journalism or whatever, you're going to throw that camera down and run away, except in like Chronicle, where it's the bad guy filming because he's kind of turning into an egomaniac.
Yeah. I'll even admit in my favorite found footage film, like I've had that. Like I love Cloverfield.
Yeah,
But
it's
halfway
good.
through that movie, I'm like, you wouldn't be filming.
No.
You shouldn't be. And if
But
you
anyway.
are, you're going to die.
It was
For
a
sure.
tangent, but I appreciate y'all's answers.
No, that was a great question. I would say the two films I think got it about right were The Host, because that's all on webcams
Oh,
and they
yeah.
stick to that.
Great movie.
So like that would just be statically running. I believe that. And the other is Paranormal Activity, because for the most part, the scenes where it would be that you would just run away, those are all captured on the static ongoing cameras.
Yeah.
Chronicle too, like Jeremy mentioned,
And
because
Chronicle.
the
Chronicle's
villain is like this egomaniac teenager emo kid who's like, I'm gonna film my villain rise, and it's like I can believe that. I can believe because
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Dane DeHaan is evil.
yeah,
Absolutely. No
100%.
question. And you know, like that like ties all back into the Pioneer thing, right? Like Blair Witch is very much one of those movies where it's like there's no way you're filming. There's no way you're filming this. There's no fucking way. You brought your camera in here and you're looking at this moment of your life through a screen. No way.
100% no.
And
But
that is
It was the first one to do it.
100% just like Polar Express, where I look back on that and I'm like, good on you for creating a genre I've loved forever.
Mhm.
But can we stop pretending this movie is still scary? Because it's not.
No, not compared to the found footage that's out now.
Yeah.
And you can just watch that stuff on YouTube. People's real found footage. People just like whether you like true crime or supernatural stuff, it's all out there. Like way more
Mhm.
scarier things with Blair Witch. And if Blair Witch was on a Nuke's top 5 reel now, people would be like, "That one was lame. Show me a better one." You know, like. But anyway, it's time to wrap this show up, everybody.
Yes.
This has been an awesome time. And the last thing we always do is we rate the Polar Express, but we'll do it in our own unique way. And that way is how many drinks of your choice, substances, whatever you want to say, do you need to enjoy the Polar Express to the fullest extent? And we'll start with Victor because he already was like, is there a drinking game? So Victor, how many beers, how many glasses of wine, how many whatevers do you need to enjoy the Polar Express truly to its fullest extent?
Wow. Well, I weigh about 145 pounds. So I'd say 12 glasses of wine.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I guess probably two drinks probably be perfect, where I wouldn't nod off, but I would still be mildly entertained by anything they showed
Sure.
me.
That makes sense. And what if you were gonna make a Polar Express drinking game? What would you do?
It's usually the most like the most fun drinking game I ever played was there's two. The David Lynch's Dune, where every time you can hear a character's thoughts, you're supposed to take a drink. And
Oh,
Ooh,
yeah,
you might die.
yeah, by about 45 minutes in, like I felt like I could fold space. It was
You'd
pretty
take-
intense.
You'd taken some spice at that point.
The old Texas two-step.
Yeah. And the other one was Big Trouble in Little China. Was like whenever Jack Burton asks a question, which is constantly.
Yes, yes, I love
awesome.
that.
So we got to find something about Polar Express that happens pretty often. Like every time the train is in shot, or maybe that's a little too much. But
I think I'd do you one better, Victor. Even worse, one that's like just as bad as the Dune one. Anytime a character is voiced by Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah,
That's pretty good.
That
You'd be
works.
drinking more than two
Yeah.
glasses of wine, though.
That could do something.
Yep.
You know?
Okay, Jeremy, how many do you want?
Okay. So the number, I don't fully know the number. I think you need enough for when to have a drink whenever something happens where you're like, wait, what? Why this? Why this? I have examples that we haven't even used yet. Example one, when the main kid gets on the train, the kids are already singing a song about the Polar Express, the train they all presumably boarded that evening,
Right.
and it's got verses
By
and
memory.
a chorus.
Yeah.
They just all
Yeah.
know it, and they're just, "Phew, why
Sweet.
that?" Or like at the end, the main kid, he lost the bell, and that know-it-all kid is like, "Well, it's the thought that counts." What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or when Tom Hanks is as the conductor says at the end, like it doesn't matter where the train's going. What matters is deciding to get on. He says
Or-
that's the thing about trains. That's wrong.
That is the most wrong thing about trains. If there's one thing you know about trains, it's where they're going. It's
Like
their
where
entire,
they're going is
everything.
almost
about where they're
all of why you decided to board that train.
Can
going.
we?
You know exactly where you plan to go. The
Can we-
train can't go down a back road.
We have
Oh,
to
15 to
circle
20
back.
drinks.
No,
Be-
hold on. I have one more thing to say, Travis.
Okay. Okay.
I wanted to add one more, just like, what? Because I
Please.
agree, Jeremy. That would be a fantastic drinking game, and it'd be very subjective, and it sounds awesome. I'm gonna make it a new holiday tradition.
Hell yes.
But oh yes, it was the hot air balloon scene. I never got to talk about it.
Yeah, you never.
But can we talk about how they had so much more preparation for how to catch people falling out of the hot air balloon than they had to prevent any of the disasters that led to a bunch of people needing to fall out of an air balloon in a very tactical fashion.
Bro, you
What?
know every
Take
single
a
year.
deep drink, my friends,
Mhm.
and don't think about it too hard.
Bro,
Don't
no,
talk about
that's maybe the most thought out thing. You know, every single year, people are getting into that bag of toys,
Every
laying
time
the
it
thing
happens
down,
every year.
knocking the star off the damn tree because
star
they're
never
too weighed
stays.
down.
They
Yeah,
were so ready to capture that star, and it just
they were
blew
so
my
ready.
mind.
They jumped and they fell faster
Bungee
than the
jump.
star
They
because
sure
of
did.
magic.
There was
So-
a what moment in Jeremy's argument where Jeremy Hudson quote was, whenever you're doing an adaptation, you just have to say to hell with the thing you're adapting.
No, that,
I was like,
that is not what I
what?
said. What I said is that the adaptation can't really matter because you can't count on
It
the
has
audience.
to. It has
You
to.
can't count on the
No.
audience having even encountered the source material before. Like, for instance, I found out there was source material while recording this show
in real time.
in real
Okay.
time.
We're gonna
It's right.
get into this in future episodes, but it has to matter on some small level. But I digress.
Yeah, what would you drink, Trav?
I think I'd start this movie like I started it, never seeing it. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do my usual, sit down with a nice small glass of whiskey. And then the scenes of the kid in the house are going to go by and I'm going to be like, something's off here.
Yep.
But I'm going to keep sipping my little whiskey. And then as soon as he gets on the train and the know-it-all kid comes on screen, I'm going to be like, okay, and I'm gonna pause the movie, and I'm gonna go get the bottle.
Yep,
Oh, sure.
And I'm
that's
just
when you
gonna
know.
I'm just gonna sip probably like a good 4. I'm gonna have a good 4 whiskey buzz so
Mhm.
that I can not concentrate on the uncanny valley, specifically with some characters like the girl. Something was off with the way they animated her mouth, but
A lot was off.
every time she was on screen, I was like, what is going on? I'm so scared right now. I
Yeah.
think this thing is going to come out of the screen, and I know it's supposed to be a person, but that is a thing. Like that is an alien. So yeah, I need like a good 4 whiskey buzz to get through the uncanny valley of Polar Express.
That's good. And I don't think I mentioned it, but in my rating, I was drinking peppermint schnapps out of a Camelback like a middle schooler on a ski trip.
That's
You-
perfect. Or a
you
middle
and-
schooler skiing down the top of a train.
You
Yeah.
and I had very different middle school experiences, Germany.
That's what happens when you go to a Catholic school in Great Falls, Montana.
I suppose. Well, mine would be to drink 3 Old Raspbians,
Mm.
which, if you've ever drank a 12% Imperial Stout, you will know will be about equivalent to 4 to 5 whiskeys, possibly 6 whiskeys.
Mm.
I like what Victor said. He brought up a good point. You don't want to nod off.
No.
So pace yourself. But you're going to want 3 of these tall boys by the end of it if you really want to try to experience that Santa moment for any kind of epiphany. Awesome. Thank you for being here, Victor. Can you tell everybody one more time what you're up to, what you've got out there that they can check out, and where they can find it? And we will, of course, put links and everything in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. I guess if you want to track down my fiction, I have a collection published called The Sound of Fear. It's a bunch of Twilight Zone type scenarios where the living come into contact with sounds from the beyond. And I guess the best way to track me down is to follow me on X or Blue Sky or Instagram. I'm at Dime Store Caesar. And if you disagree with anything I said today or agree with anything I said today, please comment, follow me and comment, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And I love to talk about movies. So, yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you for being here, man. And thank you, listeners, as always, for tuning into Fermented Fiction. We'll be back with our Christmas episode, which will be Nosferatu.
Ooh.
Yes, and we'll be talking to Jeff C. Carter from We Bleed Orange and Black. Victor, you were an awesome guest. This was a wonderful discussion about Polar Express. I wasn't so sure how we would do 90 minutes, but this has been our longest episode of the season. Good job, everybody. Until next time, we have been Fermented Fiction.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Laters.
Thanks, guys.
Beautiful.
Good job, everybody.
That was awesome, Victor. Thank
Hell
you.
of an episode.